The people that couldn't hear tonight can tune in.
Okay. And so the way that I like to do intros is I want you guys to tell me who you are, tell a little bit about your child, and this time around I want you to tell me what frustrates you the most about the systems of support. Okay?
Systems of support.
Because that's what we're talking about today, is how you guys navigate through all of this, and I tried to create some charts for you guys to kind of see how everything works, and I'm hoping to kind of help you navigate it. So I'm doing this training differently. That's what I'm sitting down, because I'm trying to get you guys to navigate through it. And so this is the format is I want you guys to be able to ask me questions. I'm going to have you guys write down things and stuff like that so that I can kind of help you. I want you to leave here today knowing where to go. I don't want you to leave here like, I don't know. What the hell she was talking about? I don't know where we're going with that. So that was a waste of my time. So I don't want you guys to feel like that. I did do a part of this presentation with the Vallejo Parents Group. They have a parents group there that they invited me to.
You should network with them.
I know. Vallejo?
Yeah, it's the CAC.
That's for
So
children.
this what do they call it? The advisory council.
Community Advisory Council. They have one in Vacaville.
Yes. Every single district is supposed to have one.
Really?
Do we have it in
This is the
Venetia?
Vallejo one. Yes, Venetia used to be called the LAC.
We don't know the resources.
I know Vacaville has one.
And so at the Vallejo one, for example,
Yeah,
they
I'll give you the
have
contact
the
information.
special ed director attends that meeting.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's like a local
that's,
area.
George Anich for Vallejo.
Okay.
But he attends, and he'll bring his program coordinator, so the ones who run all the different programs in Vallejo. And so, and then it's like a board, so the parents has a president and all that, and so it's a whole system. And that is a requirement of the federal government, so every district has it. So if they say they don't,
But if we have it in Venetia,
unfortunately, because they're supposed to have it, so yes, every district.
Every district as in school district or, okay.
So this is Vallejo, Venetia has one too.
do you know the contact person?
Yeah, no, I don't offhand.
That's Jenna.
Yeah.
Oh, so I know her.
So this is based off like education.
Yes, so the parents are literally in that meeting and they're discussing concerns within the district. So the fact that, like Vallejo, for example, doesn't have enough speech therapists, so parents are bringing that issue up.
Right.
They're talking about, different program placements and needs. So any issue, that's where you're supposed to be able to lay it out on the table in that meeting.
And it's ACA.
It's CAC is what they call it.
Is it out?
Are you in Vacaville?
No, Fairfield.
I'll send Nicole the info, so then you can coordinate with the lady that runs that one and see what's
I can
happening.
easily find it on their school district.
Yes, they have it posted on Vallejo's website.
Well, I was holding the other last week and I was searching Esco's rights.
I only know the Vacaville because I'm friends with
I
her.
was on their page because,
Did you find out?
Vacaville School District,
Oh, okay.
because they're about to Esco's about to change everything for, education. So I was kind of interested to know how were they going to make sure that there was equity in the school system.
Correct, and that's another discussion point that's happening across the California right now in general and across
I
the
kind of
US
just
about
wanted to get my
equity.
hands on the plan and just
Yeah.
not that I was gonna review.
Well, and that's what they do,
Kind of.
right now in that parent group, they're actually working on developing a special education policy handbook for that district.
For
Yes,
Vacaville?
and they're letting the parents read it and make changes and make edit and everything. So I was there and I was able to see, I said, wow, this is really nice. Okay, I need to see this across the board. So this was cool.
Implemented.
Okay, yes. All right, so who wants to start with telling us who you are.
I start.
Okay.
So my name's Corinne Callie. I have a 3-year-old daughter who's on the spectrum. She was originally diagnosed with high functioning autism, but because we moved to California, we delayed our services big time because the laws here and our insurance is very different. The way Connecticut runs is totally different from California. Connecticut, we're pretty much called Department of Social Services. They send you to an agency, and that agency takes care of everything. Occupational therapy, speech therapy, teachers, aid, social worker for your child, a social worker for you. And it was nice because we would have these lovely meetings once a month at my house. And these meetings consisted of, it was really, if you think about it, it's a lot of work, but it's really nice because these meetings we would all talk about, you know, what each of them had as their goal. And they would all talk about like the big goals that each of them need to work together so the child is able to succeed. And it wasn't anything like rigorous, like it wasn't intense. So our daughter was actually able to kind of move through, and she received early childhood intervention.
No way.
So it was really nice. And I think what frustrated me the most, and I think I was talking to Gladys on our way here, was and I kind of like touched on it, was we have all these well, here they're called coordinators. We have Northern Regional coordinators, we have the social workers for the Department of Social Services, and they seem to lack the amount of resources and also lack the amount of kind of like laws and all that. And I don't think they're very well aware of what's going on. As a social worker myself, I love to like, you know, get out there and know what is available for my children, but I think they should do the same. And perhaps it's because their caseload is so intense, and I get that too from a social worker's perspective, but I do feel like, you know, you go out there, you're turned down by a certain, for example, Aisha says, you're turned down by Aisha says, but they completely forget to tell you like, hey, you can try this, or you can try that, and perhaps, you know, let me find other ways to find a way to like give you the grants that you need in order for you to succeed so your child can succeed, because no parent is able to move forward and really be able to work with your child when you're financially stressed, emotionally stressed, and you know, all the package.
Well said. Yeah, I know.
Good job.
What she said, I'm just I'm Gladys Fanning, and I have an 8.5-year-old boy who's on the spectrum and also with ADHD. My story was a little bit more different, I guess, because when I was trying to get a diagnosis, I was living up in this really small farm town called Williams, and I struggled so hard, and finally, whatever, I was able to get Alta Regional to come in. And moving here, it's been a lot better, but the school district is still a fight, always. And also when I talked to the regional center here, the service coordinators, and I asked them, you know, what is out there, they don't readily tell you. And even if you say, I'm looking for social skills, or I'm looking for behavior, more, not just ADA, but something more intense behavior management. So basically, there's a lot of red tape, and, you know, basically, all the stuff that I know is from, you know, networking with these parents.
Yes.
So, yeah. Sounds about right. You're on.
No. We're talking all this work. So Chris and Nicole, we have our daughter Raina, just turned 9. She's on the spectrum and various other fun things. But she's always happy, so the girl's not sad for more than 2 minutes.
That's good.
But oh geez, where's her frustrations? An inclusion specialist in the schools, fighting with the regional centers for every little thing. Can't
Why do
keep
we
it.
have to pay 2 advocates just to get the right amount of service for our child? Why do we have to go bankrupt? Why do we have to sell our home and move districts to get service for our child?
Why do we have to fight with the school with their inadequate goals so they know that she can achieve them well before the year that they don't want to push and stretch goals. It's a fight to get a stretch goal out of them.
Why are
But what if
there,
she doesn't make it? Like, so we don't know. How are we gonna know where she's gonna go? You're not willing to push her there. We know she's on track to hit this, but how's that trying to get her caught up?
why do we have to go to Berkeley to get decent assessments? Why can't we have decent assessors in our school districts?
Right.
But none of them know what they're doing, or they kind of do, but not at the level that is needed. Isn't there supposed to be ongoing training
You know, where is
to
that?
better themselves?
Yes, there
Where,
it is.
yeah,
We're
pay
in
these teachers to
California.
get the training they need.
And
So
how
work
can we
with
ask for
kiddos.
proof of what kind of training?
Want us to keep going?
Alright,
There you go.
Small sample.
next.
Oh, I'm Daphne Dunstan. I have 2 boys on the spectrum. I have William who is 15 years old now, and Edward is my youngest, who's 13 years old. They have ADHD, autism, ID, DD, whatever developmental,
All that happened.
I know. But we moved almost 2.5 years ago. I came from, William was diagnosed originally in New Hampshire, and actually it was me who was finding something about my son, and I was telling the pediatrician, I said, "Doctor, something is wrong with my son." I said, "Really? Bring him here." And I brought him, and I said, "Well, you have to bring him to the school district." I looked at him and said, "What? School district? How about you? You're a doctor."
Exactly.
And I was just fortunate because I was in a good school. New Hampshire is one of the best public school. And right then and there, they did some testing for William, and the principal of the special ed said, "I'm so sorry, your son has autism." What? What's autism? I don't know what's autism. We don't have any autistic in the family. So, but anyway, we did some research. My husband was in the computer for almost every month, every night to look for the meaning of autism. Then finally, they referred us to like specialists. That he was 3.5 years old when he was diagnosed. We don't know nothing about autism, nothing. And the bad thing is, there is a support, but I was working. Me and my husband are working. It's so difficult to, go for parent support group when you are both working. And we take turn. We don't have any family. Only me and my husband. He works in the morning, I work at night. I'm a part-time mother, a part-time worker, and a mother. Then, so 3.5 years. So we know that William is having problems. He's autistic. Then here comes, I don't know, I was pregnant with another one after a year. And I never thought that my youngest, so it's Edward, who's 13 years old now, that he's also autistic because they're so different. The brothers, but so different. I thought he has just like speech delay. Never thought because he's so different than William. So when we moved to Virginia, I was telling William went to the special ed of Virginia, and when we are in Virginia, God give us a good school again for public school. It was right away in the autism class of Virginia because of the IEP that I was bringing. Then Edward, they keep on asking me, "Is he autistic?" I said, "No, he got speech delayed." So, but I was not really satisfied of what I'm seeing to my kid, and the teacher was telling me. So, I brought him to developmental pediatrician in Virginia, and you will not believe what he told me. I said, "Oh no, he's not autistic. He's just ADHD, blah blah blah." And I said, "Okay." I was not accepting what he told me, so I brought Edward to a neurologist, and I said, "I'm so sorry, but he's also autistic." And so why so different? Why they're not? I said, "Well, autism is very wide range." So I said, "Okay." But that time I was not shocked anymore, but I'm in denial. like, because I have both kids, and I keep everything to my family except my immediate family, my mother. I was like, okay, they don't know my family in California, they don't know anything about it. But I finally, like, I was asked, I don't have any support that I got in Virginia. They don't have in-home support services. But the only thing in Virginia is when you have the diagnosis, mental health will care everything they will give you, automatic, not like here in California. But what is good in California is you get all the support. Like
when you
ABA,
jump through the hoops.
everything, but still, there's no perfect state anyway, but in Virginia, I was denied with Medicaid waiver for 8.5 years.
Okay.
I don't have any OT outside, nothing. So I'm still, though California is not perfect, but I'd rather stay in California than any other state.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana Ashley. I'm actually new to the group. I'm a friend of Patty's.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
so, I have a son. His name is Thomas, and he is on the autism spectrum with autistic disorder and some intellectual disability that the schools gave him in a way of being able to get more resources at school. The most frustrating thing for me is that there's so many transitions with school resources like the speech therapist or occupational therapy, that once your child starts to gain momentum, they switch and then they go in different directions, and it's very difficult if you have a child that has a hard time building that trust and then going forward. So that's very difficult. As far as getting resources here in California, it actually seemed pretty easy to get my son diagnosed. We were at a child care facility, and I didn't know that he was autistic, but he was acting different from one child care facility that we were at in Emeryville. Like, he became more withdrawn and was doing just more repetitive behaviors, and this was at like the age of 4. Because I have twins, I've seen both the girl and the boy in development, and they were pretty typical. I would say that maybe my son was more hyperactive, but that was about it. But once he got to a new environment, more of his signs of autism started surfacing. And so I asked if he could be evaluated, if they had a system to evaluate them for readiness for kindergarten. And they said, yes, we can go through children's nurturing projects. So they came in, had an observer. They did an observer. The observer came to our house with a report. She referred to the psychologist through the school. And they all did the observations through the home. And then they said, well, we have a chance to go to the regional center. We'd like to rule out autism. And I'm like, rule out autism? Well, that's just the psychologist's way of, making it easier for you to say, hey, your child has autism. And then they would go and do the ADOS testing there with their psychologist, and then we became members of the regional center and got services through them pretty easily until the new bill where you had to go and get insurance through your services through insurance. And then at that point, the most frustrating thing is that you would get services, but then if the behavioral agency wrote a report that was not billed medically correct, or had the wrong wording, or had too many hours, then you would get booted out after just starting the program, and then trying to get back into services was really difficult. It took a lot of reports, legwork, and
They're not better by now, is that?
It's the MBIS.
We have MBA.
I have friends too.
I had problems before.
My name is Jade. I'm excited because this is the first time I've ever been in a room where I feel like I can relate to so many people. I just heard about you guys literally today, and thought, yeah, we've been pretty isolated. My son is 6 now, but up until, well, we had a severe ADHD diagnosis at 3. But everyone kind of wanted to wait. Our child psychiatrist was, speaks, neurology, whatever, just a therapist in general, child therapist, just to kind of get through some of the, behaviors that we were experiencing. But no one ever really addressed, some kind of specific evaluation or some kind of, anything. So I felt like, I don't know what's wrong. Every day it was like, I don't know. And, my friends or, would weigh in on their, typical children and what I'm doing wrong. So I've experienced a lot of that. His dad and I have been separated for a few years, and he's very there's nothing wrong with our child. There's nothing wrong. So school began, and I left my job to basically attend kindergarten with my child, because it was just a nightmare. Now he's in 1st grade, a couple months in, we've, medicated, stimulants, that kind of a thing. So he makes it through a good portion of the day, but there's already been, fights at recess and all these different, outbursts in class, and he's so stressed. Every day he's so stressed. So we had an SST, now ASD is coming up, there's a lot of social issues. My son gets up in the morning and cries and says, I don't want to go to school, and I'm like, what's wrong? What's the hardest part of your day? And he's like, recess. And I'm like, okay, something's wrong, I thought he was going to say math or writing or whatever, and he's like, school is so hard, recess is so hard. So we're just now, I made the appointment with the regional center, but really I have no idea what we're doing at all. So thank you for having me.
I remember feeling like that.
I'm just like, the more help I seek, the more sort of negative feedback I get from the family, or you're just trying to label him, and I'm just like, we're just trying to survive the day. So yeah.
You're not alone.
Thank you.
Well, I'm new as well to the group. My name is Jana Zucker. I found the group like by accident, if parents know. Completely by accident. I was like, I have to ask, are you guys a support group for mom? Yes. Anyway, so I have a 14-year-old stepson. His name's Matthew. He moved in with us recently at the beginning of the summer. So not only am I having to work with some of his aspects, he was originally diagnosed back in about 1st or 2nd grade before I knew his father, as ADHD. He had the outbursts, he had the screaming matches with teachers, and then around 5th grade he was diagnosed ODD, and then right after that he was diagnosed about 2013 with Asperger's at the school level, 6th grade. And I guess that was just prior to Asperger's being changed to, for the autism spectrum. And he's gotten into a little bit of trouble last year. He lived with his mom and his sister and his half-sister and cousin and stepdad in Oregon. And my husband and I are happy that he's living with us. He's a blessing to have. He was forcibly needing to be with his dad, which is great. Starts high school, he's a freshman at Fairfield. He loves his school. But going from being a parent, almost like a fly-by-weather parent. I've always talked to the kids on the phone since we all moved from Arizona 2 years ago. They moved to Oregon, and then about a year ago we moved here. We haven't had as much time with our kids as we'd like. But going from not having any kids in the house to having a kid in the house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then on top of that, being a teenager, and on top of that, being, part of the autism spectrum. So it's, and I work from home, so I'm home most of the time, and I didn't know what questions to ask. I was like, we knew he just by being around Matthew, we knew what his strengths and weaknesses were. We've seen things where we can see his past, where these little symptoms fall in. And so in talking to some of the ladies in the group, I noticed they're like, well, he has a PO. she should have given you a social worker. And I'm like, really? I didn't even know I was allowed to ask for that. And of course, their hours got cut recently. She's out of Vallejo. And, so yeah, it's been a trying 8 months. I wouldn't change it for the world, but, I'm here to try and maybe find some social skills aspect. I know I'm gonna try, and with a couple of the ladies here, maybe go over to the regional center, and maybe just get another full assessment. He's kind of done with taking meds. He doesn't want to take them, but then again, he needs them, but he's on the wrong meds. My husband and I believe, and it's just kind of trying to get information and also trying to. My husband's on board. It's just because he is the breadwinner and he's gone. I mean, he sometimes works till late at night. It's tough to be mentally involved.
Oh, yes.
I see that with him. He wants to be involved, and he is happy for me to be able to meet these ladies and guys. And I told him, I'm like, you're coming to the Christmas party whether you like it or not. Strangers, and you're gonna smile and be my date, and that's how it is. And now he's gonna be home with his uncle playing video games. So. But I think it's the social skills. We see some of the educational side. I haven't had a problem yet, cross my fingers, with this school. We have a triannual in January, and I basically told him I want a roadmap for his next. I don't want to be planning a roadmap. I want a roadmap. You already see what he's done. You already have acknowledgments from his teachers. He's even changed since then. Like, he'll sit in class because it's boring. Because he's ahead of the curve that. And socially, he's awkward. He's very socially awkward.
So just to give you a heads up.
That's the theme.
If he's having a triennial soon, you need to write a request that you want his reports before the meeting.
2 weeks prior. 2 weeks
Before the meeting.
Oh, yeah. You can ask them.
2 weeks prior.
That's a question I didn't know to ask. So
listen very carefully, because I'm revealing secrets to get
That's okay.
Write this down.
You have to type it up. It has to be a formal request. I want this on this date, and you have to send it to the following people. So you're sending it to.
Hold on, record.
Well,
Make sure this me film.
I know. Right?
Record formal.
Anything that you want from here on out, I'm telling you guys right now, doesn't matter what system of support it is, everything needs to be in writing.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Yeah.
Okay? So
I get that.
you write the formal request, but I want you guys to always remember to be specific. Leave out any fluff, as I call it. Bullet stuff out, be real specific. So you say, I want the report by this date. Because then that's how you hold them accountable. So legally, when you go into these other areas like grievances, facilitated meetings, stuff like that, when you have all your paperwork in alignment and it was real specific, that's how you're not able to win, basically, because you've done it that way. So stay away from verbal requests, phone calls, emails.
The last email, the email I had sent was basically to follow up with her, because there was a few other things that were going on within the school with him.
So you send this letter to the teacher, which is usually the case manager. You also send it to the site principal, and then you send it also to the special ed director.
This has to be.
They're all separate letters. Yes, they're all separate letters going directly to those individuals.
So you can have the same letter.
Yes,
Send it separate.
So
Send it
here's
separate.
the
You can't
deal.
have a CC.
By law, they can't throw out people's stuff that's written to them. So make sure you write to whoever the name of the director is, whoever the name of the principal.
There you go.
Because when they open that mail, like when the secretaries get it, they made some of the secretaries check stuff, but legally, that's a federal law. You can't just throw out people's mail. So that's why you address them directly.
The director is
just email her?
No.
In writing?
Special
Yeah.
ed.
Stay away from email.
The special ed director.
Teacher.
Well, no, I
It's
had a
spam. I
teacher
never
which is
got
also
You
a
need to
psychologist.
go old school.
But then who
Email
was
are
special ed
tricky.
director? Her boss?
Yeah.
Emails are tricky
Yeah.
because
The director,
each
the
of the
boss and
email
the teacher.
systems and the school sites have like these spam systems and things set up, and who's really checking them. I have some administrators, won't say who they are. They have thousands of emails all every day. So that's not effective.
Does it have to be
So-
certified?
Depending on what you're formally requesting and you want them to make sure they get it, then yeah, I would do that. So like when I tell parents to do the certifications when you're dealing with issues around placement, issues around IEP compliance. So any of those federal statutes that will cause you to now get a legal team, that's when you need to have them certified. Yeah. They're recording me, so it'll be on the tape.
Well, where's the son?
Okay. No, he came in and put it on.
I thought I heard the door.
Yeah, he came in. So basically, that's key for any of you guys. That's one thing that I wanted to make sure you knew on the school side. And it's not just school side, but school side is heavily protected with the federal statutes, and a lot of times they don't want to mess with that. So there's certain things that you need to do. It's like you're keeping your own paper trail, your own documentation. You need to make sure you're following up. That's the other key piece to this is my parents sometimes we fall off because like you all described, you're busy, you got a lot of stuff going on, you're trying to manage. But when you don't do this and you drop the ball, they're kind of, I hate to say this, but I will say it publicly, they look forward to parents dropping the ball. Because then it gives them more time to try to figure out whatever they need to figure out. So that's what you need to be mindful of is you have to be staying on it aggressively. You have to be consistent with it. And so you have to have all your stuff organized and ready to go.
So when you say follow up, you mean like a phone call, another letter?
That's when you phone call, that's when you show up. I like to do unannounced visits at people's office. Hi. I haven't heard from anyone, so I'm there. Right, so I need your help. I sent this letter and, you come in with a smile. That's a trick too, because it's a game. I hate to say it. I'll tell you parents right now, if you come in angry, you're the confrontational parent and we're like, we don't really want to deal with you, so we'll put you over here.
I learned that from my mom.
Come in with a pleasant smile and, hi, I'm here. No one's returned my call or responded, so I figured, hey, I'm available, I'm gonna show up. So what's going on? What do I need to do now? Who do I need to talk to? And so that's where you kind of go with it at that point. So that's just little tricks that you guys need to do, but it's very important, and that is not something that is written. I'm able to tell you this because I sat on the other side of the table, meaning I worked for the school system. I was the behaviorist here for the whole Solano County. I also was a special ed teacher in Vallejo. I taught K through 3 severely handicapped class. I also did resource classes for middle school and high school. So I'm very familiar with all the rules and regulations. So because of that, a lot of stuff is not written that you guys need to know. And unless you sit down and really read the IDEA, which is like 200 plus pages, you're not going to know what you're available to do. So that's problem number one a lot of times, is they already know you don't have the information. But guess what? You're not alone. A lot of the staff, they don't read it either. So that's a problem too. So they're unaware. So that's why I try to tell parents, you guys have to be more educated. And you have to educate yourselves. So I can kind of lead you in the directions of where you need to go, but in order for you guys to really know and be informed and be empowered as this group states, you have to put in that work as well. Because it is a lot of stuff. There isn't a one-stop shop. I would love for it to be, but it's not, and I'm going to tell you why as we go through this. But there's reasons why, because we're in the U.S., number one, and we believe in equal access, inclusion, but we also believe in letting states do things the way they want to do it. Okay? So it's kind of like this free democratic system that we're in, which it has its pros and its cons to it. So you have to know how to kind of navigate through that. So that's what we're going to talk about. So in your packet here, we have three other people to go, but I just want to, before we get started, and they'll finish up with their intros, but I'm going to have some charts that I'm going to talk to you guys about so that it can kind of help guide you where I need you guys to go. So go ahead, feel free to tell us who you are.
My name is Lauren Angeles. I have a 13-year-old child with moderate autism.
Okay.
He's been diagnosed since he was 2.
Okay.
He was in the district, and then they moved him to county.
Okay.
I was very trusting. I just said, okay, if you guys think that's where he needs to go, that's where we're gonna go.
Right.
But as he developed, I just knew he was smart. He was really smart for his age, and he just was in the wrong place, man.
Okay.
So it took a while. I had to have SELPA come out finally, and we got him back in the district. Right now, I'm in a heaven place. Like I said, he's in a good TAP program, but I don't know what high school's gonna look like. And now that he is 45% mainstream, with support, the pragmatic part is really hard.
Like what the IEP looks like, so we'll talk about that
okay.
too.
Yeah, but the pragmatic is just not there. Social skills are like, I mean, he's a sweet boy, but I have to prompt him to say hello, I have to prompt him to say hi. I mean, everything is prompted, you know, and like, come on, you're 13, we've been doing all these therapies since you were 2. I mean, I just feel like I'm frustrated at this point. I'm tired of therapy.
Okay.
I'm tired.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are lucky you've been doing that since 2.
My
I've been
name
doing since
Christine, and I have a 6-year-old son with autism,
Okay.
and my frustration is the school by far,
All right.
and trying to get some sort of inclusion for him.
Okay.
What school is it?
What school? We walked out of Hemlock last October, a year ago October, and haven't been back in school.
So you're on school.
He's in a preschool in Davis, but it should be
What
his
date did
kindergarten.
you walk out?
October 2015.
Oh, a whole year. We're out of compliance. All right, we'll talk about that. We're really out of compliance. We'll talk. I can talk to you afterwards, but you now have a legal case against the district, but we'll talk about that later. We're way out of control. Go ahead.
I'm Lucy Bogacki, and I have 2 boys, 9 and 7, with autism. One is moderate. Well, they're both high functioning, but one is moderately more disabled than the other. And I have a typical daughter, 4.5 years old. And they are both mainstream completely with resource. And it's been a terrible 9 years for the 9-year-old. They stripped him straight from special day class when he was 5 to transition into gen ed kindergarten, for him to spend class with 35 kids coming from a straight special day class with 9. So that was a rude awakening. Then they stripped him of speech, they took away all services and left him with resource and OT only. And this has been the first year of like no issues at all.
Wow.
He's had a very supportive gen ed teacher. His confidence has skyrocketed.
Nice.
He's just, we won speech last year for an hour.
Wow.
And he's finally just making progress, and he's going to start
What district are you in?
Fairfield.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it was a lot of years of nothing to get
That's
something. With my second one, it got a little better, so.
I like how you use that word. We're saying who we are and who our child is and what frustrates you the most about navigating through these systems.
Here it comes.
I'm Jennifer. I have 6 children, 4 of which have special needs.
All right.
I'm the oldest. We have Ashton, who's 17. He has ADHD, optical migraines that blind him, and he has a problem calculating math. So he's has a 504 plan at Fairfield High and is mainstreamed. Aurora has social pragmatic communication disorder. She's 13 years old, has ADHD, Epstein's anomaly, anxiety. That sums her up. We just did testing for an IEP and have our meeting on Friday. So based off of the reports I've already read, they're saying that she qualifies for special education.
Okay.
We have Logan, who has ASD, anxiety, ADHD, and non-specific learning disability. He is at Clearwater Elementary School with an IEP. He's pulled out of class for about 50 minutes a day for resource related to writing. And then we have my littlest one, who was just diagnosed with ASD. She's 38 months, and so she was at the regional center and did the transition to the preschool. They did the preschool evaluation and came back and said she does not qualify for special education services at this time. And so I have started the process of filing for an IEE for that. And then we went ahead and did the study team one to see if she can do that. And the first meeting we walked out of just at the positive characteristic traits of what was supposed to be a very productive meeting and hopefully avoiding an IEP. And so now the district representatives are coming and we're meeting again on the 15th. So my frustration is with the kids is just getting services that they've already won the ability to have from people who have previously fought this fight.
Right. All right. Wrote down all my stuff here. All right, so let's look at what supports are you seeking. So I want you guys to write down at least 5 areas of support that you feel you need right now, that you're not currently receiving. So 5 supports that you need for your children or child that you currently don't have and feel that you aren't able to get access to.
Don't have any like school or home.
It doesn't matter. Okay. Any support you feel you need. Okay. At least 5. You might have less than that, but I'm sure you should come up with 5. See, there's a trick here. I got 5 topics I'm going to talk about. So yeah, we're going to talk about residential home, educational, community integration, social skills, adaptive and human skills.
What was the question again?
Write down 5 areas of support you feel you need that you currently don't have. Alright, so I want you guys to keep that list there. You don't have to share it right at the moment, but I want you to keep that handy for yourself while we talk here. Because we're going to navigate through the system and hopefully you can figure out where you need to go based on what you feel you need. So on the first chart, so if you turn the page to the second page and you're tacking here, I put together a support services chart based on home, school, and medical support. The and I did this because there tends to be confusion amongst the three groups. Because there are different services within those categories, and there's always a concern and a question, and we get kind of mixed up sometimes in the wrong place. We're saying, oh, I want this, but you can't have that under that group and stuff like that. Okay, so I thought I would break it down to you guys basically of how the system works. So in the home support services, the primary focus are these three areas, which is to maintain placement in the home, to ensure accessing the community, and to provide support for the family. So any supports that are needed in the home has to focus on those three areas. That's what they're primarily looking at. Here in California, so some of you were sharing how you were in other places and other states, and so each state has their own thing, and I'll talk about that in the other chart. But basically here in California, the way that we have it set up is we have the California Department of Developmental Disabilities, okay? So they are the ones who provides all the funding, all the supports, meaning the federal government has given them the money to say, hey, this is to be used for this population, okay? Within that, because the state of California is a large state, they develop regional centers. And we have 13 in California. And it's based on where you live, what county you reside in. So we're in Solano County, so we have North Bay Regional Center. There is no such thing, even though they will tell you, there's no such thing as this regional center has this regional center doesn't have this regional, no. You always, I tell parents, and I think I listed it here, yes, on your front sheet is number 1, because that's your number one-stop shop to go to first off. Is you go to them, go to that website, California Department of Developmental Services, because it lists every single service that is available to your child that is offered at all 13 regional centers. Every last one is listed there. How this is designed is regional centers act as case managers. So in some of the other states, they don't have regional centers. So for example, Hawaii operates by the state. The state does everything. So they have their Hawaii Department of Developmental Services. They're the ones who manage and do everything. So you were talking about Connecticut. Now Connecticut kind of did everything, okay? Here in California, we're not doing that. It's because we're big. So they divided it up. They said, hey, we're gonna give you X amount of dollars to run these services in your counties. Those services are monitored by DDS, okay? So there is nobody who can tell you, oh, you can't have this service. If it's listed on DDS website, you can have the service. But it's also based on what they feel that your child needs. But it's also, that is determined on what you say when you make the phone call. So I tell my parents, I need you guys to be very, very transparent and honest. So for example, for my people seeking behavioral services, you can't downplay the behavior and say, well, sometimes, you know, it's not all the time. Sometimes it's this, it's that. That doesn't work. And it doesn't work because they really have to justify the service. So always remember this. Regional Center doesn't run anything. They're case managing. But they have regs to follow too. So the regs they're following is Title 17 and Title 22, Lanterman Act, That's what they're following. If you take the time out to read these things, if they're written very generically, it's left for interpretation. It was written years ago, okay? And it hasn't been changed or modified. So this is how it gets tricky because it's left to interpretation. So someone will read it and say, well, it says this, but then they're like, no, but we can do this over here, okay? So you have to know that off the top. So what you have to do is just educate yourself about what's available, look at those regs, see what your child can qualify for, and be honest, be transparent. So I have a parent who was actually, the significance of the behavioral problems was this parent was actually hiding in the closet from her child, but telling the worker, oh, everything's, it's not that bad. I'm like, so that's not realistic. You need to tell the truth, which is, I'm hiding out, I'm scared of my child, this is not okay. You have to be honest about that. And then that prompts them to say, ooh, we got a crisis, we have an issue, we need to put these things in place, how can we help you? Because remember, they're case managers, they work for your child because your child is the client. You're not the client. So that's where it gets tricky too. So remember, you have to now play being your child's voice.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't be the voice. You're speaking on their behalf. What do you think they need? Do you think they want to, terrorize? Well, sometimes, but most of the time, no. Okay, so you're looking at speaking for them of what they need. So that's the trick with the regional center. Again, please put stuff in writing. So you're not just calling, making the hysterical phone call. You need to write down exactly what's happening. So I tell parents, write down what's happening in the home. And you only need to do that, I tell parents, no more than 2 weeks. You don't need to do a whole 30-day synopsis. That's a lot. 2 weeks is enough information of just jotting down the incidences that occurred and what you feel you need support on. That includes, I take him out to a restaurant, flips out. I try to take him to a family event, flips out. You need to have all that in writing, because then that allows them to say, hey, maybe we need to work on community integration. Okay? But if they don't have that information, they don't know what to do, because the issue with the regional center is it's also what they call a parent-initiated support. You have to call, you have to tell them exactly what you need support on. And that's the difference. So on one hand, your child is the client, that's who they're working for, but on the flip side, you're the one who's advocating for everything. So you're the one saying he needs this, this, and this, or she needs this, this, and this. Okay? The other thing is, don't worry about the types of services that you're saying you want. Remember, you're going to be sitting there when you call with your list. Or better yet, when you're in the meeting, have the list sitting right there in front of you. And say, this is what he's doing or she's doing, and this is what I see that is offered. Which one we're going to get today? Based on what I just told you. You see what I'm saying? So you're already coming in there prepared to say, this is what I've researched that's available. This is what I'm seeing is an issue in my household and in the community. Which one will fit for my child? That's how you come in that setting. Okay? So now we got that covered. So home does home and community. Okay? And this, remember, is all the way to, unfortunately, when they pass away. They have regional center for the rest of their lives once they're in the system. Okay? So things change. Like I have some adults that are working on navigating on the bus. They give them a travel coach to go with them, showing them how to get through the bus system. There's lots of different services based on the age and where they're at and what's going on, okay? So just be mindful of that too, but again, across the board, everybody's supposed to be doing the same thing, and if they're not, that's when you have to contact in writing. I feel my child is not receiving the adequate amount of support. Again, remember who's running it? DDS. So who should you write the letter to? DDS. Then you still CC Regional Center, you still send it to them, but the regulators is DDS. So I hear parents all the time saying, I'm frustrated with the Regional Center, I'm frustrated with the Regional Center. They don't run anything. You gotta go to the ones who run it. And they dictate to them what's supposed to be happening. And trust me, this Regional Center in particular is currently under investigation. So that's public information, so I'm on video, but it's out there. There's a disproportionality of services being offered within this Regional Center. So that is currently under investigation. I encourage parents to find out when they have board meetings, because they do have board meetings, and that's where you're able to express whatever concern you have on public comment. You also want to review the agenda. You can also get items put on the agenda, but you have to call and request that ahead of time, and you may have to put that in writing as well, okay? So there's a lot of stuff, but it's like trying to battle the Regional Center is really not worth it. It's DDS is the one you need to battle. And they need to be flooded with the concerns, which they currently aren't, because all of my parents go to the Regional Center. So they come down after something major has happened. Then they come out of Sacramento and say, what's going on down here? Okay? And they're understaffed. Just to let you know, it's a state-ran agency where, you know, state agencies don't have a lot of staffing, and so they have huge caseloads and they take a long time to do different things. So just be prepared for that. But they have processes for grievances and things like that. So once it's in the system, they have to investigate it all the way through. Okay? So check that out. Now moving on to school support services. So their primary focus is education. Okay? Has nothing to do with home and community. It's education. That's what they're totally centered on. And it's about free and appropriate public education. That's that word faith. That's what they're focused on. Okay? And making sure that they have direct, equal access to the general ed curriculum and any activities that the general ed is doing. So IDA came about when it was time to stop segregating the individuals with disabilities. They wanted them into the existing programs and not to be treated as they were being treated. So this was like, back in the day, we had the shack in the back. We had no regulations on how they were dealing with behavior. So this is where we had locked restraints and quiet rooms that were locked up, and all kinds of crazy stuff was happening. And it wasn't until, you know, children were basically dying, unfortunately, to where they made some changes and shifts. So this is not okay, we have to do stuff. And the other thing is, a lot of times they were in institutions as well. Now here in California, we're currently in the process of closing down all the institutions. So in 2019, there will be no more developmental centers at all. So this is fun time. Because some of these individuals have been in there since they were like 3 years old. And they're like in their 40s. And we're gonna release them out to wherever they may go. And I don't know for right now. There's lots of proposals out of creating homes for these individuals to be received, because we don't know where they're going currently, but we're closing. We are closing. Yeah. So good times. And these usually when we're institutionalized is because manageable, and families have said they can't do it anymore. And so now we're changing that system because of money. It's very expensive to run these centers over the years, so we're closing them down, and we're going to reallocate those funds into these wonderful behavioral homes. That's what they're called, behavioral homes.
Oh,
Yeah, behavioral homes. I don't know who's gonna run that, but yeah, so we're gonna have all these wonderful behavioral homes coming down. Yeah. Okay. So with that said, the school side is completely focused on education. So every service that is available is about what's gonna benefit your child to be able to be successful in the classroom environment. With the academic piece of things, or if they're working on functional academics, whatever it may be, it has to be all centered around education. So this is when we're working more on life skills.
Oh.
Okay. So we're not doing the traditional sit down types of tasks. We're doing other types of tasks that are more meaningful to that individual. So bottom line is, it has to be, the rationale for that has to be around the educational benefit. If it doesn't, they're gonna say no. And this is what I tell my parents all the time: be very careful of what you write in the IEP, because that's what they're going to follow. So you need to make sure you understand how the IEP works. So there's lots of pages in the IEP, right? So it's very important that you actually read it. It's also very important that it's actually completed. You know, sometimes there's blank areas. Blank. We didn't need to fill that out. Doesn't pertain to you. No, we need to fill it out. Something needs to be written in every single component of the IEP, which also includes, there's these categories of what they're looking at. So you can find that on IDEA. So that is number 2 on the list. IDEA, or the U.S. Department of Education, has all the categories of educational benefit that they feel that they're going to look at. So you'll see categories like social emotional, fine motor, gross motor. You can find that on the wonderful present levels pages. Okay? But if you go to the website, you'll see what all these categories include, all the different stuff that's included in those categories, okay? So that's what they're looking at. That's their systems of support. Those are all the areas that they are required to do. So when you start asking for things that are not in alignment with that, that's when you get pushback, okay? So it's very important that you're clear on what those categories are, but also clear on where your child is, okay? So there is a difference between ability and disability, okay? So that means just because someone has a certain types of disability doesn't mean that they can't do certain things, and vice versa, okay? So you'll hear these terminologies when you're in the meeting, and you guys need to be paying attention to that. You need to pay attention to and kind of hone in on when they say, well, due to his disability, this is impacting him. But he has the ability or the capability to do this. And that's your side typically. Is you guys as parents who see them every day and you spend the most time with them, you're aware of what? Their ability. You understand that. Now sometimes at school they don't see all the ability. Okay? And they just don't, because it's not designed that way. It's designed for that whole classroom environment. They have their little program of what they're doing. So they may not know that he can flip through the DVD player very quickly. You know what I'm saying? These little special talents they have at home. They may not be aware of that. the other thing is they may not know that they can do it, which then can shape and help them to accommodate and modify on how to teach them certain things. So it's real important for you to share little skill sets that they do have so that they can try to replicate it at school and use it as an instructional mode.
And we're just getting into kind of the gist of our IEP because he moved from Oregon, so they had to figure out what Oregon had versus what California had. But within his IEP, should they be expressing to the teachers that he has that these are the things that need to be done in class, or do we have to express that to the teachers?
You're part of the team, so you get to express everything that you want, and they should automatically be talking to all the team members that are there, which includes the teacher. A lot of times when our kids are in the general ed system, what happens is the general ed teachers aren't aware of a lot of stuff.
And most of them aren't in school.
IDEA. Okay? They're not aware. The other thing though is there's not a level of sharing information. So here's a little trick for you guys. It needs to be written in the IEP on the services page. There's a little top area that I see that they have now where it talks about all these other little supports and different things. On that page, I need you guys to start making sure that you write in that section, I want general ed collaboration. Because then it holds them accountable to talk to one another. Right now we don't have it written in there, so there's no need to discuss it.
I want general ed collaboration.
Yes. You want it listed as an actual like service. And then there's a section where it says how often they're going to do that. So it could be monthly, it could be hourly, however you guys want to discuss it in the meeting. But you want to say, I want, if my child is exposed to the general ed curriculum and he's being mainstream or included or integrated, because you're going to hear all those terminologies, you need to have general ed collaboration with special ed team. They need to be working together. And that needs to be written in the IEP.
Could you add that to the IEP now?
Yes.
Could you like ask
Okay,
for an
so
addendum?
remember everyone, there's a wonderful thing called an addendum. So anytime you want an addendum meeting, remember, make your formal requests. Don't do verbal and email. You want a formal request that you want to hold an addendum meeting, and you tell them why. You say, I want to add the following to the IEP because I'm concerned that they're not working together. Remember, everything has to have a rationale and it has to be related. So guess what? If they don't collaborate with each other, then how successful are they going to be in the program? And they're meeting their goals, all that type of stuff. How is that going to be successful?
Well,
that's your rationale.
I had a question about that. My rationale would be like, I'm always the middleman.
Yes.
So I'm always like, I have a good communication with my teacher, but I'm telling them everything my case manager should be telling them.
Right.
And I'm calling out the OT to do her job
you.
and everybody do their job.
There's another page, I don't know the name of it, but I have to look at the IEP right now because they've changed the forms repeatedly. But there's a section about communication. In that section, that's how you write, I want people to be communicating with one another. I don't want to be the middleman. So you make them specify that on that page. So what I tell parents in the school, think of the IEP, this IEP that you have that I know most of my parents store because you got hundreds of them. Okay, but really treat this almost like it's the contract of you purchasing a home, or it's your Bible, or things like that. And the reason why you do that is because this is the game plan of what your child is going to have. Everything that is written in here has to be followed. If it's not written in here, what happens? It doesn't exist. We don't have to do it. I'm following the IEP. It's right here. I did it. What are you talking about? That's what happens. So you have to take the time out to review it and make sure all those sections are filled out. And then again, looking at your child's ability, what's missing? What can be added? What can be taken out? Because also some things need to be removed. They don't apply anymore. Okay? So you have to do that. And I tell parents, always read the IEP before your meeting. The last one you signed. Because they're going to be reporting out on that one. And they're going to be saying, what are you talking about? We've been following this. What are you talking about? Okay? So it's real important that you review that. The other thing is, again, like we talked about at the beginning, you can request it before the meeting. It's actually written, you can check it out in IDEA. Technically, by law, publicly stating this again, they are supposed to give it to you before the meeting. Yes,
Yeah.
you are not supposed to be getting it at the meeting.
Yeah, it's a job.
I know. I went on vacation and I had to, while I was on vacation,
Yes.
every single little evaluation copy, everything.
Right. And right now, we're in an electronic system. They're using SACE. Everything is in PDF, all these different docs, Google Drive. We got all this technology. There's no reason to say, here you go, here's your stuff to review.
You're trying to read it,
That's
understand
it.
it, and they're talking.
And I tell parents, I have instructed parents to walk out of the meeting. If you're in the meeting and you're just getting the information, just walk out. Say, I'm right on that little page saying, I'm leaving because I just got these reports. I haven't had a time to review it. I'll come back when I can review.
So is 2 weeks okay?
You can do it whenever you feel. Remember, you're writing the request and you're saying this date. The only thing you have to be mindful of is when you're in a triennial. Because when you do a triennial, you sign the assessment. They have a 60-day timeline to complete assessment. So do not ask them for assessments and stuff if the timeline isn't complete. And it'll be listed on the assessment plan when that date is ended. It should be if it's not requested.
That's
You
the
want it on there.
That's a triangle.
That's the assessment plan that you have to sign for them to even assess. They're not going to assess if you don't sign it. Okay? So you have to pay attention to that. You have to be mindful of that. So it's real important for you guys to start exercising your rights that are already listed for you to do. You should have everything prior to the meeting. You should have it reviewed. You should have your little highlights, whatever. You should be coming in there. The IEP meeting shouldn't be long. It should be a real straight up review. It's like,
Should be.
no, it's not, I'm serious, because if it's done correctly, that's how it should flow. And I kind of look bad at the districts because it's like you're making more problems for yourself when you don't have it done ahead of time. I was a special ed teacher, so I could speak on that behalf. I did all my stuff ahead of time, sent it out ahead of time, and I would start the meeting off with, so do you have any questions or concerns? Because you got everything.
Yeah.
What's up? Where do you want to start? Like, we didn't have to go in order. I could just go right into it because it's like you had it ahead of time. What's your concerns? What do you feel I need to change or work on? Because remember, we're here to serve you and your child. So I wasn't trying to be confrontational. I'm just like, hey, what are we doing? Do these goals look good? You want me to review each one? Would you like to see a sample of what that's going to look like? That's what you do as a teacher. You know, and then you talk about the services. Well, I recommended these services based on this is what I'm seeing in the classroom. Are you okay with that? Because if not, what are you seeing at home? Because this is what I see. So this is what I feel that the person, needs. And the same thing, speech people, you know, I train all my service providers, like, look, don't come in here not prepared. Like, we need to know why you selected this amount of time, what was the purpose. I need some clear information, because I'm running this and I need to know. So that's how it should be done.
Just for clarification, so when we went into our initial IEP meeting, we in essence should have had the report.
Correct.
Before, and that
Yes.
we'll give them that one.
Yes.
So for this next one, this triannual, I need to ask them maybe 3
When
weeks
is the
beforehand.
date?
They haven't told us yet.
Oh, I like that.
They said about middle of January.
So find out for who has the assessment plan, because that's why they're determining the date. So whenever that date you sign that assessment plan, started the timeline for the 60 days.
60 days, okay.
Yes, and I'm just tell you, I'll throw this in for free. We're usually all over the timeline. I'm just gonna put it out there. We don't meet the deadline of 60 days typically. That's already a major out of compliance, bam.
I think, yeah, their 60 days is gonna be sometime, like I said, in January.
Yeah.
From our last IEP was
Holidays and all that.
What did they
Yes. They take it out. Yeah.
That's why, I think that's why it goes into
Yeah,
January.
take it out, and when you request a meeting or something, if you send it like the day before the holidays, they could just ignore it and say, oh,
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's kind of weird, because they're not.
Well, they're going by their calendar, and they're going by, again, IDA, the regulations is on the business days and school calendar.
Yeah.
they're pretty legit.
So I think that was the reason why, because our IEP meeting was on the on Halloween.
Yeah.
And so January would be 60 days from then. Or thereabout,
So
after
that's how they
holidays.
do it, and so that's the other thing is you start off that whole assessment process typically based on birth date and also when they were first assessed typically. So it just depends how that fell. So if you went in, your child has a birthday in September, but maybe they got diagnosed and was eligible back in December or something like that, that's what starts the timeline. So it always starts from the initial IEP, which also should be listed on the first page of the IEP. It'll say the first IEP and on. First ever. Yep, first one ever should be listed on there. Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff on the IEP, and you gotta really comb through it, as I call it. And I typically will help parents with that. I've done IEP preparations. So I've sat down with you guys to like go through every single section and all that, and then say, okay, let's make our list of concerns of what we're gonna request or what we have issues with, because I'm trying to teach parents how to come into the meeting. You need to be just as prepared as they are. Okay? Or sometimes you'll find out they're not as prepared, which is great. It meets your case. You know what I'm saying? When they don't do that, because then they're looking silly, because you're coming in as the parent, and you know, I tell parents, play the part. You come in with your, you know, your briefcase, you got your glasses, your notepad, pull out your stuff, your files, and you spread it out and say, okay, I'm ready. And then always record. You know, you have to request that. FYI, you need to request it. You also have to request who you want to bring to the meeting with you. Okay, they won't deny you, just have to, you're basically giving them a heads up. They're legally, they can't deny you for that. But you have to be fair and give them a fair warning so that they're prepared for what they need to be prepared for. So you always tell them, I'm bringing this person as a support to me for the following areas. So like sometimes families have me come to the meeting, especially here in Solano, because they know I know everybody. So we're bringing Zoe to the meeting. So so I'll come to the meeting, and you know, it's a different, you know, tone usually when I come. But the point is, you know, you come in and you're prepared, and you say, I'm bringing this person because they're there to support for this area. I have concerns in this area. They'll share that, and that's what we're going to talk about. That's it. And then you request to record. The other thing is you can also request facilitated IEP meetings. guys aware of that?
I've had them in my.
Anybody know what that is?
I just requested one for the
Yes.
student study team where a representative of the district that is in charge of that area comes and
Yes.
helps facilitate.
So you can have facilitated IEPs. It's usually conducted through the SELPA. Everybody knows what SELPA is, Special Education Local Plan Area, Special Education Plan Area. Okay, so that's on Business Center Drive over there in by the Cordelia Library. Okay, that's the Solano County Office of Education. They're based in there. Every single district in California and in the U.S. has a SELPA. Every single one. And Vallejo is their own SELPA. Vallejo. They're doing their own thing. They're bigger than everybody else in Solano County, and we're doing our own thing. Okay? Hence the issues. Anyway, so the SELPA is ran by the county.
Oh, by the county.
Yes, they're ran by the county, so it's Solano SELPA, then you have like Napa SELPA, Sonoma SELPA, Yola SELPA. Yeah, and then Vallejo by themselves. Good times. Okay? So anyway, they're the ones that you can request a facilitated IEP. This is when you guys cannot come to an agreement, meaning you feel like, oh my God, I'm not signing this IEP. I can't stand you people. I hate the district. I'm suing everybody. Before you get to that stage, hold the facilitated IEP. Please request that before you go. And the reason being is because the SELPA, even though they're a part of Solano County, their main focus is to make sure that IDEA is being followed. They are the ones watching all the special ed programs within Solano County. They are monitoring that. Yes, they will come to IEPs, but you have to request that. Again, do it in writing, but make the request for them to come out. They will also look at placement. Like, let's say, I heard a parent saying they're concerned about what's going to happen next year for high school. If you call them, they will actually send someone out to look at the possible placements with you to say yay or nay, or this is not going to work, or what are my options, okay? So you have to utilize those resources first. Now, a lot of times they don't tell you about them, but I'm telling you about them today. You have to hold that facilitated meeting. It will stop a lot of this extra drama, the grievances, the mediations, and arbitrations, all this stuff. Because what happens is when they do the facilitated meeting, they're going to put the little post-it papers up and say, yes, this is what the parent is saying. This is what the district is saying. Can we work together? Can we meet and get it be in the middle? Okay? I've only been to a handful of them because parents don't know about it, so they don't request it. But when I go, they reach that happy medium and we're good. But a lot of times we don't do that. So I'm telling you guys to exercise your right and do it.
So the facilitator, they're not just a note taker. They're holding.
Yeah. They are running the meeting.
They're like a mediator.
Right. Yeah, they're the mediator. Okay.
Correct.
They're like a mediator.
I know that term goes
So that's what they do. So that's important for you guys to know. Ask for the facilitated IEP meeting. Okay? And again, put it in writing. Usually those are automatically recorded, but you make sure they are, and they're documented. Okay? So that's your other resource too within the school system when you're dealing with the districts and you're frustrated, go to the SELPA because they're there to make sure everything is being followed. That is their job. They are federally funded. That is what they're supposed to do. So you have to reach out to them. But a lot of times you don't, and so hence the issues that you guys run up against. So you're not by yourself, okay? All right, so medical side, this is where it gets really funky. That's why I put it on the bottom here. Medical support services have to be deemed medical necessities. the treatment plan has to be based on that. That's off the top, and any of the medical stuff. And this is why we had such a huge issue with ABA services being transferred to the medical scene, because the ABA services have nothing to do with medical under their current system. So they've been running rampant trying to figure that out, because really ABA is not a service. It's applied behavioral analysis. That is a science. So it's like when you guys walk around saying, I want ABA services, it's like you're saying, I want biology services. I want psychology. Don't say that, okay? I want to train you guys today. Leave ABA terminology out of your mouth. Just say, I need behavioral support, okay? Because ABA is nothing more than a science. And there's lots of different types of treatments and interventions and therapies that are under that umbrella. But the ABA itself is nothing more than a science, okay? And so the bottom line is that's a hot service that people want. And the reason being is because why? You're dealing with what? Behaviors. And you're frustrated. And if you can't get them to be managed, then how are you going to teach them and educate them and how they're going to participate in all this different stuff? So it's a need and it's there, but you have to say it that way. So some of you guys are receiving, like I heard, I have on my list here, a lot of therapies. Okay? That's why you got a lot of therapies, because you're requesting this science. And so every different agency is going to come in there with their bag of different interventions they may use. Okay, and you have to be careful of that. You have to ask these agencies, you have to screen them out and see what are they known for. So like Easter seals, for example. Here we go. I'm gonna say, Easter seals is nationally known for doing early intervention services. Nationally known for doing early intervention services. What do you think early intervention? What age group?
3.
So once you hit out of 3 and you hit 4, Easter Seals is known for early intervention services. Now they have recently, when all this insurance stuff went down, they secured the primary contract with Kaiser.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
And it's because they're a nationally recognized agency that has been around for years with lots of dollars. So in the medical system, they felt more comfortable with contracting with that type of agency. Not knowing they are known for early intervention services. So what they in turn did is they've expanded their services to do stuff outside of early intervention services, which meant they started looking for subcontractors who already specialize in that area while they built up this department. Okay, so some of you guys have been dealing with them working out the kinks of expanding their services. So I'm not going to badmouth them because that's what they were known for, meaning they were experts in the area of early intervention. But now they have expanded it to do school age and adults and so on. So you got to give them a little room because that's not their thing. And they started that in 2012. So it's only 2016. We're moving into 2017. You know, give them a little break. Okay? So with that said, you guys have to pay attention to the struggles you're dealing with on the medical side. And you're dealing with that because ABA doesn't match up to the medical side. That's what's happening, because it's a science, but it's not a medical science. Okay? So that's your struggle in that area. And remember, they're only focusing on how can we treat this disability, or how can we treat this disorder or this disease. That's how everything is focused on. So when we threw in ABA, it just messed up the system. They're like, what is this? That's why when you're talking about the reports have to be written a certain way, all that type of stuff, it was an issue. When we put this together, because I was on the State Senate Select Autism Task Force, where we actually talked to these different insurance groups and so on, they were completely confused. Like, how does this work? Like, how are we going to hold people liable? What type of service is this? Because, you know, it's not like you have, you know, the little insurance malpractice. What is that? We don't even qualify for that because it's not something that's deemed medical. Okay, so it's a huge confusion. And I hate to say it, because I'll say it publicly, I was not for voting for this. And it was because there were too many things to work out. We were basically trying to create a brand new system and service that isn't in alignment with the medical practice. So you're asking them to do something that they have no idea. So it's been a huge fiasco because they were not prepared to receive this at all. None of the insurance groups, none of the hospitals, nothing. They were not prepared for this. Now it's with Medi-Cal, effective last year, so it's been a mess. So again, you gotta pay attention to all this type of stuff. So some of you who might get denied on your claims, all that kind of stuff, it's because they just don't understand. What is this? What justifies somebody needing 20 hours a week of support? Why? Where does that meet the medical need? They don't get that. You see what I'm saying? They can get chemo. We're gonna do chemo for 3 weeks. You're gonna get this amount of treatment because they know exactly why you're getting that level of treatment. You see what I'm saying? With ABA, it's case by case. Every kid is different, so they want to know, well, how come this guy over here is getting 20 and then you said this one's 5 and what? Like, it's all over the place. It's very confusing. Yeah. Yeah, it's confusing, but you get like the cancer has stages of cancer and they can understand like, okay, this is it. So it's not like cut and dry. It's like, what is this? So it's
under mental health?
Yes, but even mental health is still what? Subjective.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It's not a science either. You know what I'm saying? It's again dealing with the psychology of it all, Freud and all these people. It's not something that they can really understand, which is why even in that department, it's difficult. There's lots of turnover and issues in that area because it's not something that they can actually see under a microscope. It's something that you don't know. You don't know why this child decided to throw themselves on the floor right now. You have no idea. That's not medically sound. Okay? So just know that. So don't be upset when you go to the doctor and you're describing to the doctor all this stuff. They're just looking at you like, huh? And it's because they're not educated on that. They have their own medical manual that they follow. And then you have the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which goes over all the psychological stuff. So they're looking at you like, I don't know. I didn't go to school for that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what happens. So now there's been a push to get them more and more educated about it, but the reality is they haven't. That's just the reality. And so you can't be frustrated with them. You just have to say, okay, well, anything medical wrong with her or him? Because if not, I'm getting the hell out of here. Because you don't know what you're talking about. You see what I'm saying? That's what you have to do.
You're talking about with the doctor?
Yes, you have to tell them I'm out of here. You don't know how to help me.
Exactly. Well, only because I'm switching to Kaiser and I'm freaking out. Because I don't know. But
yeah.
We have to. But
so,
anyway.
what I tell parents, medically, if your child has a medical issue, you go to the doctor. They can handle that. They're pretty strong in that area. When you start playing around with medications, it gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
Because they're using medications to treat certain things that usually isn't the medical. So meaning there's some meds that we use for blood pressure, but we also use for acting out. Okay?
Yeah.
So you really need to go to a really good psychiatrist, you know, and that person is the one who is trained and is an expert on the medication. But you also should be in conjunction with an actual therapist to kind of understand some of that stuff too. So, and unfortunately the therapists a lot of times, they're not trained to work with disabled population. That is in our group, our developmentally delayed.
I know, that's right.
You're gonna hear the term, they're not cognitively available for treatment. Okay? So what I tell families to do is this: stop requesting individual therapy, request family therapy. That's the trick. Because you need support. I need to know what to do with this child. And so family therapy is what they can understand. They're going to look at the family dynamics. They're going to do all this great stuff. But you need to ask for family therapy.
I will tell you, not all insurances cover it, but
Kaiser has it.
Yeah.
not my.
Me and Matt get it.
Yeah, Kaiser has it.
Oh,
Well,
that's
Yeah,
my
try to get
Medi-Cal.
an appointment.
Blue,
That's
blue,
the other
blue
caveat,
cross.
they're not available when we are. They don't
Yeah.
have the time. Oh, God.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
once,
thing about
once a
Medi-Cal.
month,
Do they
once
have
every
that
60
family
days,
therapy?
you're lucky.
And I
'Cause they're
think it's
Yeah.
important
over
also
and
if you're
over.
like waiting for a diagnosis. For example, like when I came here, Emma couldn't receive behavioral intervention services. So as I reached out to her doctor, and probably like just a frustration that my daughter wasn't going to get services, I requested play therapy and family therapy because I felt that it was like I needed something for my daughter before her setback was like too severe to the point where like how do I like get my daughter back? Because I felt her regression, but I also felt like she was being suppressed, and I also felt like she could advance, but I just couldn't provide that. I couldn't be the parent, I couldn't be the therapist, I couldn't be everything.
So another public comment is Kaiser is being investigated for this issue about services, meaning you can get your initial behavioral health appointment, but ongoing appointments has been a major issue. So they're being investigated because they are offering this services.
What service?
Behavioral health, which all that goes under, like the ABA, mental health, everything is under behavioral health, even medications for behavioral. So what happens is they are saying that they provide the service is not happening because they may not have enough providers or different things. So, but it's being investigated because you're broadcasting this is what you do. So you have to kind of follow through with that. And then there's a lot of regulations in the health and human services that you're supposed to abide by what you're saying you're doing. So it's under investigation. They're aware of it. It's public knowledge that it's an issue, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to circumvent this at this time.
So they all want to strike.
Yeah, they want to start with all.
Yeah. There's a lot of issues happening there, and Kaiser's their own group, so you can't go outside of the group typically. That's another issue. They're their own group, and so that's why you have to be careful when you choose companies like that, because then you're upholding to that, and you can't stray away. Okay, but now that it's under investigation, they may have to be creative, which is open it up to have to go out. And that's where it's going to be an issue, because it's going to be some money, because they're going to have to pay or share the rates.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to waiver it and let people go outside.
Yeah. So that's the debate that's coming down. Alright, so in this last part here, I've saved this for last, because we've kind of been talking about all of it in a nutshell. So federally, all the feds do is these two categories here, legislation and funding. You hear me? Legislation and funding. So don't go to the feds for any direct support unless you're planning on changing legislation or you need some more money to your state, because that's what happens. Because what happens is they create the legislation, they say this is what we're going to do across the U.S., but we're going to go ahead and give it to each state. And you guys decide what you want to do in your state, because we're democratic. And then the funding is determined on the need. So that's why each state has different levels of funding, because it also determines what they're reporting.
That's why you report to.
That's why you gotta report
to the state, you're not to
yes.
regional.
You got it?
Yeah.
So it's based on the need. So when you flood DDS's office with, hey, we need this, this, and this, then they have some evidence to show to the feds to say, we need more money because we have more parents saying we need this, this, and this. Okay? So that's how that works. Now, the state, as I stated to you already, they serve as case managers. So now they're taking all these laws and everything and the funding, and now we're managing it all. We're determining what we're going to do with it and how we're going to allocate it and all that good stuff, okay? So, honestly, they're the ones regulating everything to make sure everything is going out, because they've been given this set of dollars from the feds and the law to say to do this, so now they got to manage to make sure it's happening. So that's why you go to them, because if it's not happening, it will impact what?
Funding budget.
Right. See the catch? See how this works? You see how I got this going in the order? It's real important for you to pay attention to that. Okay? Now, services are based on the individual needs of your child. That is it. So none of you will ever get the same stuff. It's because it's what your child needs, okay? But you all have access to the same stuff. It's just what your child needs may be different from what your child needs and vice versa, okay? So you have to respect that. That's how it's designed. That's what is written in the law. That's when, unless you're going to go change legislation.
Try it.
Okay? If you want to change legislation, then you can change that system of support. Okay? Now, locally, where you go is school districts for the educational stuff. You can go to recreational centers. There are laws around the fact that it's equal access. So what I've been telling parents, because I've actually talked to all the rec directors about 2 years ago when I was doing some surveys and information about what's available, they all said they take children with special needs. But they need to know ahead of time what they're dealing with, how to support them. Some places have even said they will offer a one-to-one support if they know what that one-to-one is going to be utilized for. Okay?
What's I apologize, what is maybe an example of a recreation center?
So like City of Fairfield has 2 rec centers. So that would be, what is it,
Community center?
the community center. They have
Aquatic center?
yes.
The what? The
Aquatic center.
Oh, the aquatic, yes.
So, let me remind you. The booklet, you guys.
Yeah,
you get a booklet in the mail, whatever city you're in, the activity guide. That's the rec people. Okay? You pay the rec people through your taxes. Okay? So that's your local level of support that you guys do not use. So again, they get funding from the state and from the city, But if they don't have an influx of enrollees of other groups, they won't have the funds for
They
that.
also hold board meetings, so parents can, you can go and say like, hey, this is not, like our activity, like we are special needs parents, we need this for our children, and they have, kind of like a plan, it's a 10-year plan, each Vacaville has it, it's a 10-year plan, and they have like all these supposedly fundings that they want to get, and they're requesting from the state in order to fund whatever is necessary. Like Vacaville wants to put more parks and more bathrooms and more accessibility, and
So here's the secret, how I got funded in Napa for running an after-school program. They put us under health and safety. There's a line item about risk assessment for recreation. They don't use that money too often. And so we're able to fund some support under that category. Okay? Under health and safety. Because my kids are going to tear it up. They're not going to be safe if we have some support.
That's true.
Okay? Health and safety. There's a line item in their budget about health and safety and risk. Okay? So that's important to know. So again, you have to come to the table and ask them about that. Now the other local support is your parent support groups. You guys are here. Okay? Now Nicole isn't funded per se, but there is the matrix. The matrix is federally and state funded because every single state has to have a parent resource center under the federal law. And matrix serves under that parent resource center.
Every what?
Every state has to have a parent resource center that is paid through the federal government and the state. They share the cost to ensure that the parents have that one-stop shop to go to. That's what the parent resource center is for. No, Matrix is here, but there's other agencies all across. Yeah,
they have a different one.
But they're all called parent resource centers.
They're all parent.
So they're funded by the feds and the state to make sure that you guys have a one-stop shop to go to. So when you guys ask for that, they say, aren't you going to your parent resource center? What are you talking about? We pay for this. What are you doing? So again, if you want to change legislation or have complaints about those groups, that's who you talk to. You say, oh, they're not really helping us. I have a concern. Yeah. Okay? And then you have private direct support providers. That's me. I'm a private person, so I have my cards there, and there's other different agencies. Okay? And then you guys are on the list. You gotta conduct your own research. That's the music in all this. And unfortunately, whether you had a child with a disability or not, you still gotta do research of what support you need for your child. So that's on you all the time. It doesn't go anywhere forever. You gotta request assistance and support. You can't have other people do it for you. You have to do it. You have to be the voice. You have to be the advocate. And then you have to actively participate and follow up. If you don't do that, like I said, if you let the ball drop, it will drop quick. So you gotta stay on it, and you gotta keep going and keep going. And you may need to take a break periodically, try to get some supports. I tell my parents all the time, find other people to go with you. Get other friends, family members, others to come with you to support you when you're feeling burnt out. Because it is going to be a burnout period. But again, the more prepared you are, the less stress you should have. Because I've seen that with the different families that I've worked with that are very structured and organized, and they'll call me to say like, hey, it was a great meeting, it was positive, everything happened, I'm feeling good, no issues, and it's because we prepared for it. So it's less stress. They were even less stressed in the meeting. You know how you feel like, oh, I'm being interrogated because you got all these people there and it's just you. But they felt more comfortable coming in prepared and they're like, oh yeah, I read that, I saw that, and you know, I had some concern about that. What does that mean? Like when you say he's cognitively deficit, or what are you talking about? What is the social deficit? Can you clarify that for me? You know, so it's like they asked those types of questions, and so they were participating and they felt good, and so it was a better meeting. But if you go in there not prepared, not clear on stuff, you didn't get the materials ahead of time, you're going in there all frazzled and upset already, just off the top. So you have to get all this stuff ahead of time so that you can be better informed. Okay? So, do you guys feel like you are going to leave here today with all your information you need?
I have a question though.
Okay, go ahead.
What did you say, cause I'm in a vibe with Northern Regional right now about funding for my daughter's physical therapy and a bunch of other stuff, and they keep coming back to me and telling me they have no funds, we don't fund that, we don't fund anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, physical therapy is tricky, but remember, go to the list to see what's offered, but I know
Cause I
physical.
went through her medical insurance, and with her medical insurance was the people, the providers said they can't do it for a 3-year-old. So right now I'm fighting with Northern Regional, because Northern Regional said that a psychologist came out and said it was normal for my daughter to walk the way she's walking because she's on the spectrum. So then I was like, I'm not aiming for my child to be normal in the spectrum. I'm aiming for my child to walk adequately when she goes out, when she's out playing. So I had this huge fight with them about it.
Yeah, so that's tricky because I don't think Regional Center offers that, to be honest with you, but you gotta look at the DDS website to make sure. But I don't think physical therapy is on it, and it's because physical therapy is used two ways. It's either medical necessity, meaning something they can't access the community, they can't access their home. On the school side, it's used about accessing the school site. So meaning being able to sit in their desk, walk around at recess, get to all the different places. So that's how PT is typically utilized. So that's the issue. So if they didn't deem it medical, or they didn't deem it meaning she's not able to access the curriculum because of her physical issue, that's why you're running into an issue. So what you could do though is find out if you have someone local. So like I know there's a PT agency in Benicia. It's in the Rayleigh Shopping Plaza. It's a whole little center there. Find out what she does, because she may do private, but she may be willing to run a sliding scale with you. Okay? So that's the other thing. Don't be hasty with asking, I need a deal if I'm paying out of pocket. Okay?
I've had the experience where I've been able to go to one of Thomas's medical doctors and talk to him about a concern that he had, and he referred to physical therapy. And then he was able to get it, and it was subsidized.
Yeah. Yeah.
The doctor referred.
You get a referral.
Yeah, that's why I got the referral from. But it's just hard to find something with her age because they're so tiny that they think they're gonna grow out of it.
Well, there's rationales around the science of it all.
The science of it all, and that's my concern.
They don't like to do a lot of stuff with 3-year-olds, but it's different. Like I said, if you go in and you're trying to do something privately and you're paying out of your own dollars, then they're more open to it. But if it's something that, remember, anytime you guys aren't paying for stuff, it has to meet the criteria and the rationale for it to be free. So if it doesn't, then they can't do it. So that's why they're telling you that they have to meet the criteria when they bill the insurance and so on. And remember, it has to be medical necessity. It has to be for a treatment. They're treating something, some kind of disorder, disease, something like that. If it doesn't, then it's hard for them to try to meet that criteria and the insurance providers to pay for that service. But you guys can always get what you want privately, but you have to be open with saying, this is my budget, this is what I can afford, can you work with me? And there's lots of people, private providers, who will do that because they know what the families want that support, but they know you're limited on what you can afford too. You know, so just be open about that and see what happens. Yeah, I mean, they do it all the time. You gotta act. You gotta put yourself out there. I need help, and I'm struggling. Help me now. Remember, be truthful.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand how the school side is running parallel to, the principal always says, my clinical, pathway, my clinical pathway. And I'm like, he's one child, and I'm trying to understand. So with the IEP, we've had 2 SSTs. That's my experience so far. They're holding off on the evaluation.
For those that don't know.
I feel now there's really no benefit to wait. He's struggling in class, so I think we need to do the evaluation, the 6 days, whatever they're saying. And then at that point we would get the IEP. And that's regardless of clinical diagnosis?
Yeah,
Well,
what happens is, okay, so if you have a medical, like let's say you went to the doctor and the doctor says your child has autism or ADHD or whatever different disabilities, you have the right to take that report in to the student study team meeting and say, I want this to be under consideration for accommodations and modifications.
Which I did.
So at that moment, they should be open to doing what they call a 504 plan. So that's the alternate when a person doesn't meet the criteria for special ed. Because special ed has a specific criteria. They have 13 categories that they follow, and that's the regs that they have to abide by. But under 504, it's a whole separate set of regs. It's under the Office of Civil Rights, and it's about any kind of medical condition or issue that isn't warranted under special ed falls under that. And there's an actual 504 plan that can be filled out to say this is how you support my child. And when I say this plan is utilized, it's utilized for everybody. So like I have people who, let's say they were overweight, so obese, there's a 504 plan for that. They have diabetes, there's a 504 plan for that. We're now coming up against some transgender issues. We have 504 plan for that. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that's deemed a medical issue or outside of like even a mental health issue, it can all go under this 504 plan.
And that is determining the 504 versus the IEP by
Correct.
the academic evaluation.
It's after they do the actual assessment, but also the 504 can be instated anytime you bring a medical report in. If you have a medical evaluation that states this is what they have, then that's what they have to take. You have to say, I want this to be under consideration. Because they don't always have to accept it. But what they do is, you say, I want this to be under consideration for a 504 plan. You actually use those words, so then it automatically slides them into that category.
What happens is my son was originally diagnosed Asperger's actually at the psychologist school level.
Okay.
And we went in and they said if he doesn't fall under, this was prior to the report my husband got, the report his ex-wife got, and the teacher got. It was like here from 1 to 5, where does he fall here? From 1 to, it was like 100 questions. And if he didn't fall under the autism spectrum, then they'd have a 504 plan. And that way they'd be able to situate him outside of if he needed extra time for studying, if they needed, if he needed no distractions when taking a test, here's a pencil, here's a piece of paper, take your test, away from students. That also benefits under an IEP.
Right. So yeah, you always have alternatives, and if that's not complied with, that's when you contact the Office of Civil Rights. Okay. And they will deal with that. They don't like the Office of Civil Rights. I think we had one case that happened in the West.
The Office of Civil Rights is the state?
Federal. Oh, quick update. So I'm a part part of the Special Needs Council that we have through the local planning child care council here in Solano County, and we were able to secure through public health. So the public health administrator, he immediately agreed to provide trainings for in-home support providers within the areas of behavior management as well as nutrition and communication. He also authorized for 2 critical care nurses to be as needed to actually train in-home support providers on how to do G-tube feeding and all the different medical things that may need to be had. And it will be, you know, as needed, so you have to state when you deal with your in-home support person, you say, I want this person trained on how to do this, and they'll send out the nurse. So I got approval from that recently. I'm gonna actually sign a contract this week to hold them accountable for that. And then we also are in the process of securing some additional dollars through First Five Solano. They have a grant to actually, and this is for us to help train child care providers. So we're doing in-home support providers, but we also are doing child care providers so that they will know how to work with children with special needs. And so the surveys that you guys may have completed, we took that data and we're able to determine what type of training
That's
we
what
need.
survey you guys have.
So, and I'm in charge of conducting the behavior management training. So I actually did I have an actual manual for this already, but we're gonna use that and we're gonna train these providers on what to do, because that was their concerns, they didn't know what to do. So we're working with First Five. We're also working with Solano Family and Children's Services. They're trying to see if they can secure some dollars as well. Solano County Office of Education has thrown in their hat to say they want to try to support as well. I'm also in communication with Head Start. You know, that's a big agency from the state and federally funded. And so they're interested as well. I think public health kind of set the standard, because that's ironic basically for them to do it, but he did it because he was for it. I presented to him what the need was, he understood it. We're doing 4 trainings a year, so it'll be like a quarterly basis for these providers. And so he actually had the board approved for the upcoming year, but he's also trying to make sure it's ran every fiscal year. So he wants to keep it ongoing, and he's actually even offering incentives to the providers to get them there by giving them gas cards to get there. So he threw that in.
Because my provider is complaining.
So basically, we've been doing a lot of work. I also I wrote a legislative bill for you guys in regards to making it mandatory that child care providers get trained in specialized areas of dealing with children with special needs. And I wanted to be held, the courses to be held at the local community colleges. It would be a part of their licensing requirements. So I put that in there too. So I wrote that and I'm presenting it this week to Jim Frazier, the assemblyman, who has participated and actually wants to support us. So I'm hoping that I've never written a bill, so it was my first draft. They had us do this, you know, fill it out, and it was short notice because his rep was actually in one of our local child care planning meetings this past month, like 2 weeks ago, literally. She was like, oh yeah, we're looking for bills and they need to be in by the first week of December. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I had to do all this research and do all this stuff to put it together, and then I have to present it to him on you know, well, not to him, but to his aides coming up this week, and basically beg to see if we go to the next round, because what happens is, if he takes it, they have a legislation team that's gonna turn it into the actual law, do all that stuff, but it'll actually go to Governor Brown in January. So that's why we have to move this quickly, because he looks at it. I think we wanted you and Patty to be there. It's just a small,
It's Thursday,
intimate,
right?
yeah.
It's the day before.
Yeah, it's just a small, intimate group, because we're just meeting with the aides, and we're presenting that, and we're basically begging for, but we need something different for a change for our population.
Can I request to go? I used to do a lobby.
Oh, yeah, she wants to
Okay.
So
Here,
I would love to go
Yes.
and actually go out to like
Okay.
Vallejo and gather testimonials if the bill is able to
Right.
pass through like
That
the
will work.
legislature.
And I will send the draft to Nicole, so she can send it to you guys to read, but I just put a little draft together. We had some legislative support, so we've had like Bill Dodd, Tim Grayson, all those different people have said they want to support it, so we'll see, you know, we'll put you to the test here.
Try to put up a
Yeah. So, and we went that direction because, you know, I think it would be well received to just add a requirement. It shouldn't be that expensive to do, to add a couple of courses at some colleges and stuff like that. We wanted to also look at creating some centers, but because we are an inclusion state and country, it's going to be very hard to try to push like an exclusive, isolated, segregated center. So we have to be careful of doing that, because it's almost like reverse discrimination when we do that. We got to be mindful of that. So I went the professional development route, like how can we train the personnel that is already there so kids can go to their local centers that are already here and feel comfortable and safe, versus trying to create something completely, and so I talked to a lot of the child care providers, and they all agreed they would take, you know, children with special needs, but they don't know what to do. They're not trained, they don't have, it's not a requirement